Craig Geater, professional team mechanic for Radio Shack professional racing team. How are you?
Good, thanks.
So can you tell me now, the tour's just finished, but you left the tour a little bit early, didn't you? Can you tell us why that happened?
Yeah, I left 2 days before the final rest day because half of our team had bad luck and either crashed out or got sick. It started okay. It was all going to plan the first couple of days, and then I think about stage 5, I think it was, we started the disaster with Rajkovic crashing and breaking his collarbone and having a brain concussion, which forced him out of the race. And then the next 2 days later, Chris Horner also crashed heavily and knocked himself out completely and broke his collarbone. He broke his nose. And so that was him forced out of the race. And then Levi, in the meantime, had crashed several times and lost a lot of time, which ruled him out of contention, which just left us with Andreas Kloden, who survived all the crashes until stage 8, where he was involved in the crash with David Zabriskie and Vinokurov. And out of the 8 guys who crashed, only 3 continued in the race. The other 5 all went to hospital with broken bones. Kloden, unfortunately, he was following Thomas Voeckler in one of the descents, and Voeckler's wheel slid out and hit Kloden and knocked him off, and that was basically the end of it. And then on the rest day, just to add to the injuries, Jaroslav Popovic had a fever of 39, and he didn't change the next day, so they said it was best not to start him. So we lost half of our team. On paper, we had an extremely strong team, and over the years we've done extremely well, but this year wasn't our year.
So how did you get where you are today, Craig? Where did you start your career as a professional wrench monkey?
I started with my parents' bike shop, and then I went on to working with the New Zealand team for a while, and then I came to Europe to see what it was all about, and I was living with Scott and Vanessa Guyton, and they needed a mechanic. Scott needed a mechanic in his team, and they couldn't find one for a certain race, and he had told their manager, who was Sean Yates then, that he had a mechanic. He hadn't been travelling around with the big show like this, but he knew how to fix bikes, and it all started from there. I started with them as a temporary mechanic for 2 races, and they offered me a full-time job, and it went on from there. That was Linda McCartney, which was a Division 2 professional team, and from there I went to the Australian Institute of Sport. In there I actually got offered a job with CSC. The main reason, obviously I was a mechanic, but the main reason I could speak English. After that I joined Johan Brunel, and he took me basically 2 years further with Discovery Channel. We basically took over the Astana team, and then from Astana the last 2 years with Radio Shack.
What kind of a life is it? Do you really enjoy the life of a mechanic?
Yeah, I think I've spent more hours in a car park than a prostitute, but on TV it's a good life, but behind the scenes it's long days and long hours. We get up fairly early in the morning. We have to make sure the bikes are all prepared and ready to go. The other side of the team makes sure the food and everything's ready to go. So generally we'd start between sort of 6:30, 7 o'clock ourselves in the morning, and at an average we'd finish between sort of 9 o'clock and 11 o'clock at night.
I mean, obviously there's a lot of sweat. You guys work your asses off all day. What about blood? What's the worst thing that can happen to a cycle mechanic?
I saw one mechanic lose his fingers in somebody's wheel one time in Tour of Switzerland. I guess that's about the worst. Normally,
how did that happen?
On a descent, it was quite a rough descent, and then after the descent, they went back up a climb, and one of our riders had asked us to readjust his brake because his wheel was starting to rub. So we had readjusted that, and then we dropped back, and another rider had come back from a different team and asked their mechanic to do a similar thing, And as he was doing it, the rider went over a bump, the wheel bounced up a bit, and he got his fingers stuck in the spokes, and most of them took off.
Did the rider fall off?
No, the rider didn't fall off. I
Just
think, yeah,
just carried
losing,
on.
yeah, losing your fingers is a bit like a knife in hot butter
Oh
at that
no.
speed.
It's pretty tough for a mechanic to lose his fingers too. You need those, won't you?
Yeah, if he basically we've never seen him again. But yeah, you get a few. It's not that bad. We have to hang out of the car quite a lot at high speed or tricky areas, but it's not as bad as it looks. And yeah, if you know what you're doing, it's pretty simple.
How often do you have to hang out of the car like we see on TV?
If you're a good mechanic, not at all, and if you're bad, quite a lot. Most of the time, you'll hang out of the car if a guy's if he has a problem. If you can adjust something on the road while he's riding, you hang out of the car and do it there and then. Or if you're trying to fix his race radio that's in his back pocket, you tend to hang out of the car to be a little bit more free. And
Do you often get riders complaining, oh, my brakes are rubbing, when in actual fact the legs aren't just working?
yeah, unfortunately, when a rider has a bad day, it's always because of the bike first, but because that's the only tool he's using.
Do the riders have a lot of contact with you, asking you to do a lot of stuff with the bikes and give you a lot of grief when things aren't going?
Yeah, a lot of riders they come to you personally and ask you to try and they want their bikes like they're within millimeters. Everything has to be exactly right. And when you're talking 3 or 4 bikes per rider at some races, then everything has to be identical. They also have a lot of funny requests, like tire pressure and that their seat needs to be up 1 millimeter and down 1 millimeter and left and right and some of those things. But once you get to know them, you tend to pick up what they're used to and normally works out quite well.
The other day on the Alpe d'Huez stage, Cadell had a problem with his bike. He got off it a couple of times and ended up swapping it. What kind of thing is going through the mind of his mechanic when that's going on?
His mechanic's probably crapping his pants thinking it's his fault. That's basically the first thing you sort of, anything wrong with a bike, you automatically, because you're so stressed in a race like that, you do start to wonder if it's your fault first before you find out what is actually the problem. For example, last year, Lance crashed 3 times in one stage, and his second crash was quite a big one on a roundabout, and it to the viewer it looked like he had gone around the corner and rolled his tubular off, and to us it looked the same. But when we found out after the stage, we had to ask him what happened, and he said he was not concentrating. He touched his pedal on the roundabout, which caused his wheel to turn sideways on him, and it actually ripped the tubular in half, and half the tubular was still glued stuck onto the rim, and the rest of it was lying beside the bike, which on television looked like he had rolled it off, but it wasn't the case at all. So,
and what's Lance like? He's out of the peloton now, but he's a legend of the sport, and you got to work quite closely with him. What's your impression of the character?
I think he's a really nice guy. He's pretty down to earth. He jokes around like most people do. He's fun to be around, and he's really motivating. Unfortunately, the media, again, sometimes, the French media portray him as somebody completely different, which is a shame, because if you actually, I mean, not many people get the chance to really know him, but if you get to know him, he's a pretty hard case, funny, outgoing guy.
And have you had some pretty intense conversations with him about your bike?
He's always very particular about his bike. You have to be right on the spot with his bike. His bike has to be exactly to the millimeter right. And then every now and then, if he's rides it one day, and he'll just send you a message and say, "Can you bring my bike to my room?" And he'll go up and he'll start measuring it, and just to make sure that that it is where he wants it to be, and he adjusts it round and tries different positions with it, and he'll move the seat up a little bit and forward and backwards, but he'll always double check with his tape measure that he always has to make sure he knows exactly where it is. So he's pretty onto it with that.
If you're going to advise someone about buying a bike, what sort of recommendations would you make?
We're pretty limited. That obviously we have our sponsors, and the hard part is that most of the stuff that we ride, we're test guinea pigs for it. We ride the stuff. Normally, it's been through tests and safety procedures before it's released, but we're always the first ones who get to use new product first, and then we find if there's any defects in it, or we tend to smash it before anyone else will. So some of that gets a bit frustrating at times when you get a whole lot of product, you make a big effort to make it ready, and then you finally start using it and you destroy it straight away.
Dura Ace, SRAM or Campag?
Well, we use SRAM, but personally I think the electronic Dura-Ace is by far the best group set on the market for the moment.
What kind of frames have been the best that you've enjoyed?
Well, I've only worked the last few years with, I've been the last 6 years with Trek, which is a really nice bike. But the sort of the standard thing around is Pinarello have the best bike in the world.
What kind of wheels would you recommend?
Well, personally, I like wheels that are basically traditional with a low rim and just standard spoking and that, stiff and light.
Great. And what's your main skill? What makes you good at it, do you think?
I don't know, actually. I think it's just the passion for cycling and the fact that I raced when I was younger. I wasn't that successful. I knew I wasn't going to progress any further and or make a living out of it. So I changed, and I actually enjoy working with the material and seeing all the latest prototype stuff and that. So when you've got a passion for that, it makes it a really enjoyable job.
So what are you doing now? The tour's just finished. You're back. You live in Belgium?
I leave on Thursday for a one-day race in Spain for Classic San Sebastian, and then after that I go to America for 6 weeks for 2 tours there.
Thanks very much for talking. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks a lot.
We'll see you back in New Zealand sometime.
Okay, see ya. Bye.